This practice of undercutting, I think, is commonplace in virtually every aspect of American industry, from Walmart coming into underserved neighborhoods and closing up shops, the mom and pop shops in general, and then when there's no more profit to be to be squeezed out in these underserved neighborhoods, like just closing up shop and leaving entirely, leaving places like West Virginia, for example, without any sort of grocery chain that they can rely on. And it's a pretty damaging practice. It's oftentimes sheltered. It's oftentimes not immediately addressed. And I wanted to talk briefly about the communication strategies, because something that I've always been fascinated by is the invisible ways in which the government works that we kind of take for granted, from the FDA, all the regulatory agencies like the FDA down to the FTC, SEC, and or even like the National Weather Service, for example. Like we don't really factor in the ways in which like our lives are made better and improved by people like yourself. So how do we address that? What are some of the biggest W's, for example, that you have had with the FTC under your reign, under the Lina regime, that you don't think has gotten proper consideration?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a thrilling, 3.5 years, and I've been really fortunate to have a fantastic team at the agency. And honestly, we have delivered W after W for the American people. We took on patenting abuse, where we found that inhalers have been around for decades, but Americans are still paying hundreds of dollars for them, and generics have not been able to come into the market as much. Our team took a close look and figured out that part of why that is that some of these inhaler manufacturers are listing patents for things like the little piece of plastic on your inhaler.
Yeah.
And so we called that out. And then 3 of the 4 big inhaler manufacturers said they're going to drop how much Americans pay down from hundreds of dollars to just $35. We've taken on non-compete clauses. These are the contractual provisions in people's employment contracts that say, even after you leave your current employer, you can't go work for certain competitors. You can't go start your own competing business. These non-competes started off in the boardroom. They now, are in employment contracts for janitors, security guards, fast food workers, people making minimum wage, doctors across the country, healthcare professionals across the country. And so we've taken on these coercive contracts. We passed a rule that would eliminate them. We've taken law enforcement action, resulting in thousands of non-competes being dropped. We're also just taking on some of the daily indignities that people experience. It can feel like just being a consumer in America today just does involve all of these small obstacles and barriers that really grate on you. Just to give you a few examples, we finalized a rule that would require companies make it as easy to cancel a subscription as it is to sign up for one, because we've seen that as more and more companies are switching to service-based revenue and subscriptions, they have an incentive to make it super easy to sign up and then absurdly difficult to cancel. And we brought lawsuits, including against Amazon, against Adobe, against a whole set of companies that deliberately thwarted people being able to cancel. And this means that these companies are taking tens, if not hundreds of dollars from people a month for subscriptions that they no longer want, right? And nobody should be stuck paying for a service that they want to exit. We've also been putting money back in people's pockets. Actually, just yesterday, we announced that we're starting to send back checks to people that were tricked by Epic Games. We brought a lawsuit against Epic, finding that they had basically, led people to make purchases they didn't intend. Kids were racking up, hundreds of thousands of dollars in charges. So we brought a lawsuit there. We're sending back, we just sent back $72 million is the first tranche of money back. We've been going after data brokers, which surveil Americans and collect all sorts of sensitive data, like your medical history, your precise geolocation, your browsing history, making sure that there are some kind of rules of the road there and how this sensitive data gets used, and making sure it's not exploited. So, we've done that. We've taken action across healthcare markets, across grocery markets, wanting to make sure that our markets are fair and open and competitive.
That's a W after W. So do you feel like there is a way to properly communicate these things to the broader public? Like, if we're going to be super serious, I know you're a government official, so I don't know, how much like what you can say in an official position, in an official capacity, but like, do you feel like the coverage on this has been sufficient? Because I was rather shocked to see you on 60 Minutes, if I'm being honest. Like you rarely ever see, invisible government employees be prominently displayed like this. But do you feel like this is a good thing? Do you feel like it was enough? Should there be more of it? These are the questions I have for you.
Yeah, look, I made it a priority to really engage broadly with kind of media across the, entire landscape. I also made it a big priority to go out and learn from people across the country. And, one thing that's interesting about the type of job that I have is that it's very easy to become very insulated, where the kind of people that you're interacting with, the kind of information that you're getting on a day-to-day basis is coming from a relatively small number of sources, and it can lead to blind spots. And so a big priority for me has been actually opening the doors of the agency and just making it easier for people to give their views on what's happening out there, to share problems that they're seeing. So we started doing these regular open commission meetings where anybody in America can come and talk to me and my 4 colleagues as commissioners, tell us what they're seeing. We have, franchisees come, people who drive for ride sharing companies. We've heard from people who have lost family members who were rationing insulin because it's so expensive. We've heard from people who have kids are suffering from abuse on social media. I mean, just like the full landscape. And we've also done listening sessions across the country. So we've gone to places Baraboo, Wisconsin. And, we went to Colorado to listen to farmers. We went to Kansas City to listen to independent pharmacists. We've really just traveled the entire country to make sure we are just getting out of the bit of the Beltway bubble and trying to make sure we're hearing directly from people about the economic challenges they face, and then also use those opportunities to tell them, here are the tools we have, here's what we're doing. And I think one thing that's really important here is one pathology that you can see sometimes in economic policy making is a lot of reliance on certain types of models and theories and assumptions that can become somewhat divorced and detached from economic reality, right? I mean, we saw that during the financial crisis, but I think we've seen that at various points since. And so, getting out there and hearing from regular people and making sure we're using that to inform our understanding of what's happening is also a good antidote to, again, making sure we just know is the economic reality rather than just relying on some of these filters.
You've also utilized the Copyright Office to tackle the age-old problem with not only right to repair, which spans across many other key sectors, something that farmers have been advocating for consistently with like John Deere tractors and whatnot, but also with McDonald's franchisees that now have the right to repair their own ice cream machines due to your comment that you filed in support of this change. I feel like these are very meaningful. They're small but very meaningful ways in which you are working to change people's lives. Now, the question I have is, it seems like we have a new administration coming, the Trump administration. Now, there have been some interesting developments in terms of the way that Donald Trump at least responds to public pressure in a unique way, unceremonious, unorthodox, in comparison to his other Republican counterparts. Are there things that Biden could do to, at least from what I understand, there is a thing that Biden could do right now to extend the amount of time you have as the head of this agency, given your a very popular track so far and all of the meaningful ways that you have helped regular American citizens. Do you feel like there is an extension process that could possibly happen? I know this is a little bit of a difficult question to answer. Or are you at liberty to discuss certain things, or at least like speculate on it, or is that too inappropriate?
Look, I mean, the president always has the chance to nominate whoever they want, and if the Senate wants to take that up, they can do that. Time is short. They're kind of focused on getting through set of people who've already been nominated, but I defer to the president and the Senate on what they choose to do there. I can't speculate about what's going to happen in the future, but we're just focused on using all of the time we have right now to get as much out of the door where we think if there are law violations, we want to bring lawsuits to make that clear. If there are rules that we think would address, persistent problems, be it on things like junk fees or privacy abuses for kids. We're focused on using the time we have to get those improvements.
There are some unique supporters of yours within the Republican caucus as well, which is why I was wondering. You have I believe even Josh Hawley, who is or other Republican politicians that have stated their support for some of the actions that you've taken. And I was wondering if there's any veracity to that. If there's any, I mean, you are popular in a bipartisan manner, it seems, even though there were certainly some fissures, even with the way that I guess the Harris campaign was communicating some of their corporate benefactors. This is not what you're saying. This is what I'm saying. This is my assessment of the situation. So you have a limited time frame you can operate in, at least all things considered at this point. And you're using that time, that valuable time that you have to continue fighting against. I guess the question is there any, how do I ask this? Is there any honesty to the ways in which the Republicans have communicated that they like you, the Republican politicians? Have you had any conversations with Republican politicians that say that have given you assurance in terms of maintaining your position as the commissioner there?
I'll just say generally, in this job, I've gotten the chance to interact and engage with and meet with senators and members of Congress from both parties. Taking on monopolies that are abusing their power is not a left issue. It's not a right issue. It's an American issue, right? And when we went around the country, honestly, I would meet with people who would say things. I've been a lifelong Republican, and let me tell you, your work to eliminate non-competes is the best thing government has done in my entire life. I mean, the level of cross-partisan support that we have gotten for our work, I think, is truly off the charts. And you see that sometimes reflected in how members of Congress are engaging with the FTC. I hear from a lot of members that are very worried, especially those that represent rural districts in red states, about how Main Street is just getting decimated. And so you have independent groceries, independent pharmacies getting pushed out of business, not because their communities don't love them and depend on them and frequent them, but potentially because of illegal business practices somewhere else in the supply chain. We hear bipartisan concern about, private commercial surveillance and how that's affecting people's rights. I think on things like junk fees and subscription traps, I mean, taking those practices on is pretty unobjectionable.